Walk Talk America is an organization that I founded in 2018 that basically bridges the gap between the mental health community and the firearms industry. So I got in the firearms industry through my family's business. I'm a third generation firearms industry professional. I was with my national sales manager in New Orleans, and we invited a complete stranger to have dinner with us that we had met at the bar. This person knew nothing about firearms, but there was a recent mass shooting, and basically she was asking questions. One of the questions was, what happens to the firearms industry when one of these tragic events happens? And we said, well, everybody blames us, we blame mental health, and nothing ever happens. And her response was, well, if you know what the solution is, or you know that it's not necessarily you guys, how do you work with the mental health community to find some solutions? And that was a game changer for me.
I host a podcast called Noggin Notes that I've had for several years. And so I reached out and I said, you guys would make a great guest on my show. So Mike responded. We talked for about an hour and a half on the show, and then we stayed on the phone for another hour and a half after that and became best friends immediately. I realized I had a role to play in this organization because I, as a lifelong gun owner, raised by a family full of cops, and having an affinity for that community, knew that there was this self-imposed chasm between the mental health community and the firearms world. So I had to, what I say, come out of the closet as a gun-owning clinician and take a stand and offer our services to this community that has been so skittish and suspicious of what the clinical community has to offer.
So before I started Walk the Talk America, the issue of suicide by firearm wasn't really talked about. We didn't talk about the negative outcomes of firearms simply because it's something that would be used and weaponized against us as a community. What I noticed was it was affecting our community the most, right? We have a lot of combat vets, active duty military, and first responders that naturally gravitate towards the firearms community, the gun industry. That's a demographic that really suffers from suicide by firearm. That stuff was always in the background, but we couldn't be out in the front with that. But now I think we're saying, look, we have an issue. You know, this is something that we can actually put our finger on. We can actually help reduce suicide by firearm, and we're doing it now. So you're seeing this cultural shift within the industry.
The real issue with firearm-specific suicide is because firearms are the most lethal method by which people attempt. So something like 9 out of 10 times if you use a gun, you're going to take your own life. Well, we're trying to get upstream from this and teach people how to take care of their own mental well-being, tend to their emotional functioning. At the same time, we need to talk to firearms owners about securing their firearms in a proper way. And responsible storage is defined as preventing unauthorized access. Unauthorized may be you in a time of crisis. So how do we keep you from accessing your firearm when you're in that place of despondency? That may take the form of handing your guns off to a trusted friend, relative, or neighbor. But also we extend that to children's suicide. And child suicide is an even hotter topic that we don't talk about, especially when it relates to firearms, because children having access to firearms, especially when they're in teen angst, is unacceptable too. So we can't have the word safe floating around when we say, hey, are your firearms stored safely? And the adults say, yeah, of course they're safe. They're up on top of the fridge, or they're stuffed under a couch cushion. I'm ready for when ISIS kicks in the door at 3 a.m. That's not responsible though.
Yeah, for me, my safes all have pictures of my daughters, because if I was ever in crisis, those are the two faces that could definitely get me to stop.
I'm blessed enough to work in a field where I'm surrounded by colleagues to whom I can turn in the hallway, who are professionally trained to help me decompress if something's on my mind. And I think that's really cool. Not everybody has that.
So we'd have like a booth like this set up to where people were walking by and seeing guns and mental health. And I think the manufacturers, for the most part, were a little bit more skeptical of like, okay, what are they doing? But that has changed over the years. But what I did notice is for the regular gun owners walking by the booth and seeing guns and mental health, it was an opportunity for them to stop and talk and share their stories. I think our message to the non-gun owner is that we're on it. We're doing something about it. I think for so many years, because we wouldn't talk about it and we wouldn't address those negative outcomes, the expectation level of the firearms industry has been pretty low.
Let's all stop being tough guys about this and acknowledge that we need assistance from each other. And it doesn't have to be in the therapy office, but it has to be somewhere. I don't care if it's your bartender or your barber, go talk to somebody.